according to the calendar, the league year in the NFL officially begins on March 11th. But make no mistake, there is a lot of wheeling and dealing that happens all the way until then, including this week in Indianapolis. The draft starts in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, then goes to Indy for the NFL Combine, where most of the league will be, not only assessing upcoming rookies in the National Football League, but also talking about the fate of some veterans. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh. Patrick, the NFL trade rumors, they're always a lot of fun right before the trade deadline. I think it's more fun this time of year because teams can now fully assess where they need to be and not necessarily make panic moves, but also make moves to really build their franchise. The Philadelphia Eagles won a Lombardi Trophy a year ago, and it looks like one of their top targets, one of their main guys, and a former SEC star in A.J. Brown could be on the move.
Yeah, and first, real quick, before we do talk about the NFL, we do have some breaking news here from ESPN College Game Day. The Women's College Game Day is heading to Greenville for the SEC Women's Championship, so
cool.
That is going to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
We were just talking with Mariah Ross earlier in hour number one, and she was talking about how South Carolina is basically going to have a home court advantage
for sure.
In a way there. But, yeah, really cool about that. But anyways, back to A.J. Brown. This year was definitely interesting, and this was the first crack in the armor, so to speak, that we saw between A.J. Brown and Nick Sirianni. I know some people were talking about him reading the book on the sidelines last year, but they ended up winning the Super Bowl, so how much did that really take away from his performance? And I might have a take here that is kind of crazy. You could correct me if I'm wrong here in a little bit. But, yeah, Nick Sirianni not able to guarantee that A.J. Brown will return. He can't guarantee anything past tomorrow. That's alarming for your wide receiver one and a guy that's been a key component for you to be able to come out of this rebuild so fast under Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, this is a really interesting and precarious situation because there's very few times where it is talked about that a team can have addition by subtraction than this Philadelphia Eagles team. This team has looked very, very strange over the last 3 seasons. I know sandwiched in between the 2 weird years was the Super Bowl.
But you take
really
away
can't
one
complain.
player, and it's 3 really strange seasons.
Yes, for sure. And it's A.J. Brown, and we can go back to all of the little things and the big things. The little things being reading a book on the sidelines in the middle of huge regular season and some playoff games. Then also you have the situation where he literally caused up the passing game with Jalen Hurts when they're on a winning streak. And it's like, what's the deficiencies for this team?
Right.
It is the passing game. And now you mix that in with you already have Devontae Smith, who is a #1 top talent. It's almost like, hey, do you go in the draft and go get a couple of guys that can replace A.J. Brown and then maybe ship off one of the better receivers and more productive receivers in the game?
Well, I was more so saying take away one player, and that being Saquon Barkley. If you took away Saquon Barkley, the Eagles would have 3 really strange seasons in a row because you go back to 2023, the year that the Cowboys won the NFC East.
Right.
The Eagles collapsed down the stretch, and they ended up being a wild card exit to the Bucs, and that was obviously Jason Kelce's last year.
Right.
If it weren't for Saquon Barkley going absolutely ballistic and reverse hurdling guys in 2024, I don't think the Eagles get nearly as close as they did and ended up winning the Super Bowl.
Right.
I really don't think so. I think that they probably would have been down the stretch, down the same stretch that they were the previous year. And we saw that again this season where A.J. Brown really, he had his fewest yards. He barely eclipsed the 1,000-yard mark, fewest as an Eagle. And Saquon Barkley, in a way, came crashing back down to earth. Teams started to game plan around him. The tush-push wasn't as effective this year. And it almost felt like the Eagles were on the same path as they were 2 years ago when they were that early exit, and lo and behold, wild card exit here this year.
Yeah, once again, they're in this really precarious situation. Last year, 78 receptions, more than 1,000 yards, and 7 touchdowns for A.J. Brown. Now, Nick Sirianni is the head coach of this team. He's been an interesting figure as he's been a head coach. He's won a Super Bowl championship, but there have been talks about firing this guy for the better part of the last 2.5 years.
Right.
For one reason or another. It just feels like he's a different kind of leader for this team.
Yeah, and I will say this about Nick Sirianni. When you think about Philadelphia and the fan base in general.
Yeah.
There's no one that epitomizes that fan base more than him, because you love him being your head coach because he's outgoing. He describes exactly what Philly is, and I get to witness this firsthand, like in the Cowboys and the Mets, so I know what the Philly fan base is like. But if you don't like the Phillies or the Eagles, you absolutely despise him. And he, I think, rubs a lot of people the wrong way. And this is an interesting quote that came out of it about him. Obviously, with the Combine this week, these coaches are starting to talk for the first time since their seasons have ended. And he said, "Will AJ be here next season? I think we're still in a spot like I can't guarantee how anything is going to play out into next season. I'm thinking I'm going to be the coach next season, but you can't guarantee anything past tomorrow." And I almost feel like he's kind of dodging it in a way.
Well, 100% dodging it in a way. And it almost feels like with Nick Sirianni that he is this close to telling the truth that's been behind closed doors. Yeah. And then he realizes it mid-quote. And then he stops and tries to retract everything, and then tries to make a philosophical point that, oh, you can't do anything past tomorrow. Well, everybody knows that. But it seems like there has been now chatter with whether it's the GM and Howie Roseman, whether it's Sirianni going to the GM or to the owner and saying, hey, look, we need to get rid of this guy. Whatever the case is, there's been some initial talks at least about A.J. Brown, because I don't think he gives us the same response about Jalen Hurts. No. I don't think he gives the same response about Devontae Smith. He
definitely doesn't give it about Saquon Barkley.
That's exactly right. And so I think that he is tiptoeing a line, understanding that there have been talks. He's trying to hide it, and that's kind of the way that I view it. Let's flip it on the other side now, because AJ can only control one side of this.
Right.
He can control if he is loud about it, if he's boisterous about it. Do you think that he should go out and say, you don't necessarily see a lot of demand requests for trades in the NFL as much as you do in the NBA and Major League Baseball, but do you think he should at least come close to that?
I think so. And I really think that this season was so bad for the relationship between him and Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman and the Eagles brass in general. I think this probably was as bad of a season as it could have gone for Eagles fans. You come out of winning the Super Bowl. You're obviously the defending Super Bowl champions. I know you lost a lot of key pieces there on defense, but still, I mean, A.J. Brown should have well over 1,000 yards. He shouldn't be sweating it out in the last game of the regular season to eclipse that mark. I mean, for example, I think George Pickens had almost 1,500 yards.
Yes.
And that was his best season of his career.
Right.
I mean, with a guy with the talent that A.J. Brown has, this should never, ever be a situation where you're almost avoiding him. And I think if I'm A.J. Brown, I went through the time there in Tennessee, got the trade, won my Super Bowl ring. I'm getting out of there because clearly they don't respect me, so why should I respect them?
Yeah, it's a good point, and I do think that he and Jalen Hurts have an interesting connection. They've known each other since they were like kids. Right. Jalen Hurts tried to get him to go to Alabama, and then A.J. Brown said no, and so they've been friends, but there have been some frosty moments, and there's frosty moments between friends all the time. And so I don't know how much of that is just football, being competitive athletes, and they can leave that at the door, and how much of that extends further than that. Some of the details, if he were to get traded, are this: if he's traded before June 1st, it's a $40 million cap hit. After that, it's half of that, and the team that acquires him was responsible for $29 million. I do think there are a couple of interesting trading partners, and I'll just throw out a couple of teams here. As we were searching for this topic today, all the NFL brass right now in Indianapolis for the NFL Combine. I did hear it mentioned that, and I know this is my squad, I did hear it mentioned that the New England Patriots with Mike Vrabel, they do have a connection because Vrabel coached them in Tennessee with the Tennessee Titans, that Vrabel basically kicked the door wide open, is the reports that I heard, for an A.J. Brown trade. Now, he probably left it in pretty open language that they could do anything, trade details, whatever.
Right.
I do think it's an interesting destination. If not, it's an AFC East divisional rival in the Buffalo Bills, who could also use a big, physical, strong wide receiver one, which checks all the boxes, in my opinion, with what Josh Allen needs.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're taking a look at who would probably be the better landing spot and who can offer the most capital, I almost feel this is probably going to break your heart, but I feel like the Bills are better suited to land A.J. Brown rather than the Patriots. I just don't know what the Patriots. I'd have to look into this pretty,
the cap
pretty
situation.
in-depth. Yeah, cap situation and everything.
I think it would be a lot off the cap. I think the Patriots could afford him. I think it'd be a lot off the cap, though, to your point.
And I also will take into account the desire and the desire to win now. The Bills are absolutely in win now mode.
Right.
Josh Allen's not getting any younger. He's only going to get more expensive as the years go on. This year was, I mean, again, I thought that Sean McDermott should not have been fired.
Same.
He did an absolutely amazing job with what he was given.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we found out this year that Keon Coleman is not a wide receiver 1.
Right.
The same way I also think Devontae Smith cannot be a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. He's great. Don't get me wrong. That's not me saying he's bad.
Yeah.
He just doesn't have all the capabilities. He's that downfield threat, but he hasn't proven enough to me that he is a true wide receiver 1 in the NFL. He's a great wide receiver 2.
Right.
And again, I'd have to look at the cap and everything and the assets that both teams have, but I think the Bills would probably have a better offer for A.J. Brown, but I still think that they might go down there to Jacksonville and get Brian Thomas.
That'd be interesting.
I still think that'd
would be interesting.
Better for him.
Yeah. I like that fit for Brian Thomas. Don't know how much I love it for the Bills as much as I would like. If I'm a Bills fan, I think I would like A.J. Brown more, just because he's still in his prime, and I think that he fits the Bills mentality, because the Bills, they want to be physical, they want to be aggressive. They like his style. A.J. Brown's style is just way more of that.
But here's the thing. They already tried this, going out and getting a superstar in their prime with Stephon Diggs, and it worked for a few years. And you could almost make a comparison with Diggs and A.J. Brown, potential divas. I mean, is A.J. Brown kind of being a diva?
I think Diggs did a lot to rehabilitate his image this past season with the Patriots, because there was a lot of way more of a maturity. It felt more mature. Now take his off-field stuff.
After the Super Bowl, take that away.
Yeah. but it felt like they relied on him. Mike Vrabel relied on him to be an elder statesman in that wide receiver room. If he has completely or not, I'm not sure, but it feels like he has. So A.J. Brown, I think the jury's still out, because I think A.J. Brown, he wants his, and now that he has his championship ring, I think that he now wants some stats, and he wants to pad those stats as they move along. It is an interesting question, though, because it does feel like to me he could be like what Keenan Allen is in L.A., what Mike Evans is in Tampa, that next piece that kind of gets you over the top.